On August 17, 2026, a research note lands on desks of executives who spent 2 years buying autonomy. Gartner warns that the cost of running a single agentic workflow, not a chatbot reply, not a one-shot prompt, but a chain of decisions a machine takes on a worker's behalf, will rise more than fivefold through 2028. The same morning, ServiceNow's newsroom reports that agentic adoption in Singapore has doubled in 2026, and that 1 in 10 enterprises there is already redesigning how work gets done. The market hears a growth story. The unit economics hear a threat. Better agents do more. More steps, more tool calls, more tokens burned in the dark between a request and a finished task. Each extra step is not a software feature. It is a bill. The old promise was leverage. One person, many machines. Falling cost. The new arithmetic is inverted. As the agent grows more capable, the compute required to finish a job rises faster than the price a customer will pay to keep it running. Call it the Inference Paradox. Improvement itself becomes the expense. Autonomy is not a line of code you ship once. It is a furnace you keep feeding. Somewhere in that furnace sits a product developers already treat as furniture. It arrived as a humble box in the editor, a ghost that finished a function and waited. It sold for the price of a streaming subscription. It trained a generation to treat machine thought as unlimited. GitHub Copilot is not a footnote to this morning's forecast. It is the rehearsal, a flat monthly fee, a coding companion that learned to act, and a quiet discovery that the more useful the assistant became, the more each customer could cost the company that sold it. The contradiction fits in one hand. Charge a fixed price for a service whose true cost rises with success. Watch the best users become the most expensive. Then ask how long a business can survive being rewarded for its own quality.
For 2 decades, the software industry lived inside a beautiful lie that was almost true. You wrote the product once, you stored it on a server, you sold a seat. After the first copy, the next million copies cost almost nothing to deliver. Bandwidth got cheaper, disk got cheaper. A database query on a commodity processor was a rounding error next to a salesperson's salary. Salesforce taught a generation of operators that the winning move was to lock a monthly number into a contract and then pray the customer never logged out. The heaviest user was not a problem. The heaviest user was the testimonial. That religion had a name on every pricing page. Unlimited. Unlimited storage, until it wasn't. Unlimited projects, unlimited messages. The word did not mean infinite. It meant the extra use was cheaper than the extra argument with a buyer. Product managers learned to hide the meter. Finance teams learned to trust averages. A few people would hammer the product. Most would forget they had paid. The forgetful ones funded the fanatics. The model felt like physics. GitHub grew up inside that physics. A repository is a file. A pull request is a record.
Serving those objects at global scale is hard engineering, but it is still the old kind of hard. Cache, replicate, shard. The cost of one more clone does not rise because the clone is clever. The cost rises because the pipe is busy. You can plan for busy. Then a different kind of machine sat down beside the editor. Not a compiler, not a linter. A model that had to think again every time a developer paused. The industry called the pause a completion. The data center called it inference. Unlike a download, inference is not a copy. It is a calculation, performed now on expensive silicon under heat and power and a queue of other people's thoughts. The output looks like text. The input is a furnace. Moore's law had trained executives to expect that furnace to cool. Transistors would shrink. Price per operation would fall. For years, that story held for the chips that ran payroll systems and shopping carts. It did not hold, not at the same speed, for the graphics processors that multiply matrices for a language model. Those chips are scarce. They are allocated. They live in buildings that drink electricity like cities. The software layer can get more elegant.
The physical layer still has to multiply. So the $10 price, when it appeared on Copilot, felt like tradition rather than a gamble. A streaming service charged about the same for every song ever recorded. A developer tool could charge the same for every function the model might invent. Casual users would poke it on a Tuesday. Power users would live inside it. The average would behave.
No one wanted a taxi meter blinking beside the cursor. Habit dies when a person watches the clock. What most buyers missed was the shape of the work changing under that habit. Early completions were shallow. A name, a loop, a test stub. The model took a breath and sat down. Then the product learned longer thoughts. Then it learned to read a repository, propose a plan, open a file, fail, retry, call a tool, and keep going until a ticket closed. Each hop is another pass through the model. Each retry is another invoice the user never sees. Complexity in ordinary software is paid once, in engineering months. Complexity in a generative system is paid again, in tokens, every afternoon. Hardware efficiency still improves. It does not improve as fast as the workflows are getting greedy.
That gap is the blind spot. The subscription page still looks like 2014. The factory behind it looks like a power plant. And the plant does not care that the customer already paid for the month.
The company that had to make the bet was not a startup improvising a price. It was Microsoft, owner of GitHub, landlord of the world's source code, and the deepest pocketed partner of the laboratory that trained the models. The incentive was larger than a line of revenue on a developer tool. If the assistant lived in the editor became a doorway. Identity, cloud, repositories, review, deployment. The rest of the stack could follow a cursor that already felt like a colleague. Thomas Dohmke's GitHub needed to remain the town square. Satya Nadella's Microsoft needed developers who had spent a decade treating Redmond as the old empire. Copilot was charm, not a lecture. Ship something that finished the boring line. Do not ask the user to become a prompt engineer. Do not put a coin slot on the tab key. Make the magic feel like air. Inside that charm sat a colder calculation. The seat could lose money if the cloud relationship paid it back. Azure would sell the same intelligence to enterprises by the token. Office would learn the same trick. Windows would learn it. A cheap, addictive assistant for the people who write software was not charity. It was a beachhead.
The people who write software decide which platforms survive. On the other side of the glass sat two kinds of human beings the spreadsheet insisted on averaging. One opened the tool, accepted a suggestion, and went to lunch. The other treated the model like a junior staff engineer who never slept. Whole functions, whole tests, whole refactors, conversation after conversation. The second person was the dream in every keynote. He was also the person whose keystrokes lit the most GPUs. The decision that mattered was not a slogan. It was a refusal. Do not meter. Do not throttle the best customers in public. Do not teach a generation of engineers to ration thought. Product culture at a modern platform company is built to remove friction. Friction is churn. Churn is a board slide. So the price stayed simple, and simplicity became a strategy, and strategy became a habit the finance team would later have to break. Ambition here is not cartoon villainy. It is the ordinary hunger of a platform that finally has a product people love without being told to love it. When a company has waited years for affection, it will subsidize affection. It will tell itself the subsidy is temporary.
Hardware will get cheaper. Models will get smaller. The average user will remain average. Those are not stupid stories. They are the stories you tell when losing the habit feels more dangerous than losing money on the habit. And then the users do exactly what you prayed they would do. They stay.
October 2023. A leak reaches the Wall Street Journal and then the trade press. AI business puts the arithmetic in a headline Microsoft cannot unsay. GitHub Copilot, sold at a flat $10 a month, is costing its parent about $30 a user to operate. The average gap is $20 every month on the people who already pay. Power users, the evangelists, the conference stories, the engineers who let the model drive, run as high as 80. This is not a claim that Microsoft as a company is insolvent. It is not a claim that every single subscriber is a whole. It is narrower and worse. The flagship price, the simple price, the price that taught the market that intelligence could be sold like email, produces an average net loss of $20 per user per month because the backend will not stop charging for thought. The spreadsheet does not flatter anyone. In a classic SaaS book, a power user is margin you have not yet collected. In this book, a power user is a small fire. The more the product works, the brighter the fire. Support tickets are not the cost center. Success is. Watch the mechanism without romance. A developer types. The client gathers the open file, the nearby files, the comments, the cursor. That bundle becomes tokens. Tokens enter a model. The model spends milliseconds that are not free on a rented accelerator. Text returns. The developer accepts, or rejects, or asks again. There is no inventory to amortize. There is no DVD in a warehouse. There is only the next forward pass. Traditional software distributes a finished artifact. Generative systems manufacture a new artifact on demand, and the factory invoice arrives whether the artifact is brilliant or garbage. Now let the product grow up, because it does. Autocomplete is a sip. Chat in the sidebar is a glass. An agentic loop is a tap left open. Plan, search the repo, edit, run, read the error, edit again, call a test, summarize the pull request. Each hop multiplies tokens. Failures multiply them again, because a machine that is allowed to retry will retry with your money. The flat fee was designed for SIPs. The roadmap is designed for rivers. Inside Microsoft, the leak is a political event as much as an accounting one. The beachhead strategy still has believers. Give away the razor, sell the cloud.
But a razor that costs $20 a month per face is not a razor. It is a rumor that finance will eventually have to explain to people who do not attend developer conferences. Optimization can shave a little. Caching repeated prompts can shave a little. Smaller models for trivial completions can shave a little. None of that changes the direction of the curve once the assistant is told to finish the job instead of the line. The curve keeps bending. By the middle of the decade, the industry word is agent. Not a suggestion, a worker. GitHub's own product language moves with the market. Multi-step, tool-using, repository-aware. Every honest demo is also a cost event. The audience applauds the autonomy. The cluster does not applaud. June 2026 arrives like a confession. GitHub moves Copilot toward usage-based billing. The public story is alignment. Price meets compute. The private story is survival of the unit. A desperate measure can still be a rational one. If the factory invoices by the token, the customer must eventually see a shadow of that invoice. The $10 dream does not vanish in a single night, but it stops being the religion.
Meters return to a surface that was designed to feel like air. The pivot does not resolve cleanly. Usage pricing protects the producer and educates the buyer, and it also risks the very habit the beachhead was built to create. Engineers begin to feel the meter. Some will ration. Some will route easy work to weaker models and save the expensive mind for the hard hour. Some will leave. The company that once refused to blink a taxi light beside the cursor now has to draw one, carefully, or watch the average loss become a business model. Dominoes fall outward from that choice. Rivals who copied the flat sticker inherit the same physics. Enterprises that promised unlimited assistance to their staff discover that unlimited was a marketing tense, not an engineering one. Procurement officers who signed last year's contract come back with questions that sound like sarcasm and are not. If your best employee is now a cost multiplier for a vendor, what exactly did you buy? And still the product gets better. That is the wound. There was no villain to fire that makes inference free. There was no pricing page clever enough to repeal a GPU.
The better the agent becomes at doing the work, the more work it insists on doing, and the less the old subscription can pretend to contain it. Idealism said intelligence should feel abundant. Reality sends a bill for every abundance. A pricing meeting cannot outvote silicon. It can only decide who holds the invoice when the silicon heats. What Copilot proved, at the scale of a product people actually loved, is a principle older than any model card. You may give a gift to win a market. You may not give a furnace and call the heat a rounding error. When the gift learns to walk across a workplace, ticket to plan to patch to test, the furnace walks with it. The companies now racing to put agents in every queue are not discovering a new law this August. They are arriving at a door a coding assistant already kicked open. The era of the unlimited intelligence seat does not end because marketers grow honest. It ends because the unit refuses to obey the story. Flat rates survive when extra use is cheap. They die when extra use is the product. Without a break in the hardware, a collapse in the price of a useful token, or a new way to finish a task without thinking so often, the subscription that feels like air becomes a costume. Under the costume, someone is counting. That does not make the tools worthless. It makes them like electricity, like shipping, like every other miracle that turned out to have a plant behind it. The romance was that thought would be the first industrial good to escape the plant.
The aftertaste is a blinking cursor and a silent ledger incrementing beside it. Workers will still want the colleague who never sleeps. Boards will still want the redesign of work. They will want those things with a number attached, and the number will teach them which thoughts are worth finishing. Picture an office at dusk. The agents are still running. A refund is being checked. A contract is being compared. A code base is being walked, file by file, by something that does not get tired. From the street, the building looks quiet. Inside, racks somewhere else are doing the walking. The quiet is a transfer. The mystery is not that machines can help. The mystery is how long a civilization can price help as if the walking were free. If every finished task has a shadow invoice, who still gets to think without watching the clock?